So what we'll do this class is we'll look at some characteristics of the LNA we want to design, right? We'll start off with the design of the LNA. We'll see what we want to do at the input, what we want to do at the, so first of all we need to do an input matching, right? Because the signal coming in from the antenna is going to be a 50 ohm port, so we need to match the input to 50 ohms. So we look at different ways to match the input. Then we look at what kind of load we are going to have for the LNA. Next class we'll try to look at the overall LNA, some additional stuff we need to do, what design procedure we need to follow, and so on. So actually there is not a lot more to it, right? Most of these LNAs are, most of the common LNAs will be single transistor or two transistor structures. There is nothing, nothing very fancy about it from the topology point of view. Okay, so we have studied the noise of the two port, noise of the MOSFET. We're going to study the input match, output match, and the gain next class, and then we'll be done. Okay. Okay, so let's get on with the input matching. Okay, so what kind of input matches can you think of? So you have a source coming in, signal source coming in with 50 ohms. Okay, obviously the input of a MOSFET is capacitive, right? So you need to find some way to transform it to a resistive. You either add a resistive component, okay, or create a resistive component using the circuit structure. So we'll look at both ways. Okay, so the first structure we'll look at is the resistor match. This is your RS. So let's say we're looking at a common source topology. It has some load RL, okay, but you don't have to consider the load. You can just look at the output current, for example. That's okay. And obviously the easiest way to do it is to use a resistor Rn. For low frequencies, very obviously the MOSFET is open circuit, very high impedance, so the impedance is going to be just R1, right? So it's going to be well matched, and it's a fairly broadband match. It's not a narrow band match. Okay, so this is a fairly broadband match. Okay, and what you're going to do, you're going to make R1 equal RS for power matching. Okay, so let's call the signal here Vn. What is Vn here? It's just Vs over 2, right? So actually what you're doing is, it's Vn is Vs over 2. So what you're doing is, before adding your amplifier, you're already attenuating your signal by half. So we'll see that's an obvious problem with this structure. Okay, and you have thermal noise from R1, okay, which is adding directly at the input. Okay, adding noise at the output is okay, right? Because it gets, if you remember, the overall noise figure gets attenuated by the gain, and that's the reason why we are adding the LNA. In this case, we are adding R1 noise right at the input. Okay, so you can calculate your overall noise figure for this circuit. I'll just give you the expression. It's 2 plus 4 gamma over alpha times 1 over GMRS. Okay, you'll probably have a homework problem, I think, at some point of time, maybe in a week or a couple of weeks, to calculate this out by hand. Okay, either this or something similar. But this is the noise figure. So obviously, what does this mean? So that means that that's your noise factor. So your noise figure is definitely greater than 3 dB, because you already have a 2 there. 2 stands for a noise figure of 3 dB, right? So that means you cannot even imagine to have noise figures of 0.5, 1 dB or something like that, which is required in many cases. Okay, so definitely noise figure is greater than 3 dB. And that's a fundamental problem. We saw why, right? First of all, you're cutting the signal by half and you're adding noise from R1. So obviously there's a problem. Okay. So let's see what else can be done. Okay. You can try to use some kind of feedback. Okay. Actually, let's add a resistor here. R1. Forget about biasing for now. We'll just look at the signal quantities. So we add some kind of feedback resistor RF. Okay. So using that, you can match your input to 50 ohms. And this has the added advantage, of course, you don't have any attenuation before the amplifier. So directly going into the amplifier, you have Vs, right? Okay. But you still have noise from this guy. Okay. And you can analyze this circuit also, and you can show that the noise figure of this circuit is still greater than the Fmin you can actually achieve with a normal common source. Okay. Okay. Why do you need R? You don't have to have R1. Actually, it just gives you an extra degree of freedom. That's all. You don't have to have R1 there. Okay. Oh man, not a good way to start the class. Okay. The third kind we'll look at is the common. Yes. Yes. So you actually trade off. So okay. So the thing is, your input is attenuated at any time you add a physical resistor. Your input is going to be V is going to be Vs by 2. That's okay. That's because of matching. Okay. But if it is part of the amplifier, that's okay. But if it's part of a physical circuit which you're adding before it, then there's a problem. That is all. Okay. We'll see how the actual signal going into the amplifier doesn't have to be, less than the input signal. We'll come to it later in today's class. Okay. Okay. The third way of doing it is a common gate. I'm sure you've all seen the common gate structure. You all remember the common gate structure, right? I think it's it's very basic stuff. Okay. So this is actually a bias, but we'll ignore biasing for now. Okay. What is the input impedance? It's a function of the GM of this transistor and your load impedance RL. Okay. And you can design it to be equal to 1 over RS. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So GM is 1 over RS, obviously. So Rn is Rs. Okay. And this is also a fairly broadband match. Okay. And of course, since you don't have a physical resistor, it's actually slightly better than the other one. You can actually get better Fmins than the previous case. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll analyze the common gate amplifier, find out the noise figure. So to simplify our calculations, we'll ignore gate noise for now. Okay. Gate noise is something that gets added at higher frequencies, and it also adds on top of the drain noise. But we'll calculate what is the long channel case. I guess you could call it the long channel case. Okay.
Sir, why do we always go for voltage source and signal? But current source and signal?
Because typically the signal coming in is usually a voltage source. Okay. So if you have an antenna coming, connected to a circuit, it's usually a voltage coming in. But you could have other cases like not necessarily wireless, but you may have wireline cases where there may be a photodiode and then there's a signal current. Okay. But in most cases you would be getting a signal voltage. Okay. And actually what we'll see is when we go into study mixers next, what you'll see is it's actually easier in many cases if you have a signal, a current signal going in. But since most of the circuits we have produce voltages, we'll need to have good transconductors and so on. Okay, we'll study that as part of mixers also. You'll see the same problem there. So we'll just draw the equivalent circuit of the common gate. Oops. Okay, so we'll look at I out squared, actually I n out squared, and this is the drain noise. Okay, so what you want to do is to calculate the noise figure, you need to calculate I n out squared, and we'll start from again the basic definition, right? Find out the noise due to RS alone, and then noise due to RS plus your circuit. Okay. And this is V and RS in our case. So let's see. So let's just use the linear quantities first, then we'll move on to the powers. This is your drain noise. Okay. So what we'll do is, first of all, assume V and RS and IND are uncorrelated. Okay, and I think that's a fair assumption. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll calculate the output noise due to V and RS first, then output noise due to IND, and then since they are uncorrelated, we can square and add the powers, the mean square powers. Okay, what is IN out is nothing but minus GMVS. Okay, let's do it this way, statistical quantities. Okay, so VS is VN RS plus what is the current flowing through RS? It's the same as IN out. Okay, so these are the two equations, and then you get this, right? Now you can get IN out in terms of VNRS. Okay, the sign really doesn't mean anything, right? Because we are dealing with noise quantities. You are going to end up squaring them and adding the mean square powers. Okay, now let's consider IND. Okay, so what is VS? So now you no longer have V and RS squared, so it's nothing but this remains the same. So instead of Vs plus IN out RS, you only have IN out RS, right? This is now a short, you are no longer considering this source. Okay, and you only have this, but of course you need to consider GM/VGS also. So we'll write the second equation. IN out is minus GMVS plus IND. Okay. that clear? INT over 1 plus GMRS. Now what else do you know? You also know one more thing. When you want to match, you're going to make sure GM is 1 over RS. Right? So what is this guy? Right? Minus GM over 2. And then I'm also going to rewrite this as, we know GM is, so I'm going to rewrite this like this. And similarly, I can rewrite this as IND over 2. Okay? So what is your total noise? So it's just this squared, IN out squared is this squared plus this squared. Yes. Sorry, by 4 R squared. Right? Okay. So what is your total overall noise figure? It's IN out total squared. Okay, this is nothing but 1 plus is that clear? Okay, 1 plus RS squared times, what is INT squared? 4 kT gamma GD naught delta F. VN RS squared is 4 kT RS delta F. Okay, so this is 1 plus gamma GD naught RS. Okay. Okay, but what do you know? You also know RS is 1 over GM. Okay, so at the end you'll see why we are doing this. What is GM over GD naught? It's alpha. Okay, we represent it by alpha, right? So this is 1 plus gamma over alpha. So effectively we have considered only drain noise, but it pretty much depends only on device parameters. Okay, gamma and alpha, nothing else. Okay, and for a long channel, what is F? Gamma is 2/3, alpha is 1, so it's 1.67 is approximately 2.2 dB. Okay. Okay, for a short channel, what will happen is gamma increases, alpha decreases. Okay, so both those things will end up increasing your noise figure for a short channel MOSFET. But this is in some essence, in some sense, it's the minimum noise figure you can achieve with a common gate. Okay. Okay. But we want to achieve even lower noise figures. Okay, we are not satisfied with just 2.2 dB, we want to go lower. Okay, so now let's consider the input impedance of a MOSFET with some ZS degeneration. Okay. Okay. So what does this do? Give me a minute. Okay. Interesting. Okay. 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 So let's do the equivalent circuit and find out the input impedance in terms of ZS, and then we'll find out what happens when you put in different components for ZS. Okay. So we'll try to use the simplest model we can. We have CGS and GM. Let's assume we have some RL here. Okay. Have the source. So what we're going to do is, so since we want to find the input impedance, we'll apply a VG, voltage VG, find out what current flows through. The ratio of those is the input impedance. Okay. So first of all, so what is the source voltage? It's nothing but VG minus VGS over ZS. That's the current flowing through here. Okay. Equals GM VGS plus IG. Okay, that is one equation we'll write. So in other words, IG times ZS plus VGS times okay, so this is one equation we have. Okay, so the second equation we are going to write is just here, because we know the relation between VGS and IG, because it's just through a capacitance CGS. Okay. Okay, so what does this mean? So we'll just replace VGS here. So VG is IGZS plus 1 plus GM ZS IG over SCGS. So what is Zn? Zn is nothing but Vg over Ig. So you have Zs plus you get a 1 over SCGS. Okay. Okay. Is everybody able to see this? Not going too low, right? Okay. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Remove the circles. Doesn't seem to be helping. Does this help? No. You guys are able to read it, right? So it's good enough. We'll just go on. I don't know what the problem is. Okay. Okay. Give me a minute. Let me get these the toolbars. Okay. Okay. So this is the form, right? For some arbitrary ZS. So let's just put in different values. We'll put resistor, capacitor, inductor. Those are three kinds of passive circuits. We'll see what happens in each case. Okay. I'm going to put in ZS equals RS. What is Zn? RS plus okay, so it's RS plus 1 over SCGS plus GMRS over SCGS. So what is this? If you have to draw the equivalent circuit, so you have RS, which is this. You have some C equivalent, which is okay, CGS over 1 plus GMRS. This is approximately, so let's assume GMRS is greater than 1. Okay, so what is this? This is approximately one over omega t times RS. Okay. Okay, but that's not what we want anyways. Okay. Okay, so what happens when you put ZS equals a capacitor CS? One over SCS plus right? Okay, so this is pretty straightforward, which is, so Zn of, let's look at Zn of j omega, okay, because we have an S squared term. So CS plus CGS over, okay, this is the first two terms. You have a, now because you have a S squared, you get a negative term. Okay, so you get a minus GM over omega squared CS CGS term. So if you had to draw an equivalent circuit, look something like this. So this is CS CGS over, okay, and this is obviously a big problem. Okay, because in most cases you don't want any negative resistances in your circuit. You obviously, you might remember that it leads to instability, oscillations, all those kind of problems. Okay, so you definitely don't want to consider putting a capacitor at the source. Okay, and obviously you don't want your LNA to oscillate, right? So okay, what is the third case? We'll put an inductor. So it's just Zs plus okay, it's SLS plus 1 over SCGS plus GMLS over CGS. So if you had to draw an equivalent circuit, capacitance is the same, inductance is the same, but the nice thing is you get a positive resistive term, okay, and this is nothing but omega t times Ls, okay, and this is what you want. Why? Because without adding a real resistor, you're actually getting a resistive component, which means you can match to 50 ohms without adding any noise. Those are the two things you wanted to do, okay. So what you're going to do is so for power match you're going to set omega t Ls is 50 ohms. Okay. Now you should also note, okay, so let's calculate the other things, okay. So now you have managed to match to 50 ohms. What else do you need? You also want to get rid of Ls and CGS, okay. Where do they resonate at? Okay, 1 over 2 pi Ls CGS. Okay, so what that means is, so let's say you have designed your transistor. So this obviously this omega t is omega t of the transistor. Let's say you have designed it for gain and noise and so on. Okay, so that's you can't fix that. But now you can choose Ls such that your input is power matched to 50 ohms. Now the problem is, once you design your transistor, your CGS, omega t are known. So what that means is F0 is, you can't decide F0. Okay, so you power matched it, but the resonant frequency may be way off. Okay, so what you need is another degree of freedom. Okay, so what we are going to do is add another degree of freedom by adding an inductor at the gate of the transistor. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to add another inductor in series with this resonant circuit. Call that LG. Okay, so now what is Zn? It's the same as before, except you now have omega t Ls, which is the real portion. Okay, j omega t times Lg plus Ls plus 1 over. Okay, so the nice thing about this, so to set power match you set Ls, and to set your frequency of the resonant frequency you set Lg, because it depends on Lg plus Ls. But of course, obviously what you have done is you have actually brought the resonant frequency lower. Obviously you cannot go higher than Ls, right? Ls plus Ls times CGS. If you add a capacitance in series with Ls,
so that will give a negative resistance plus
yes,
Ls will give a positive resistance.
yes,
You can actually match the resistance.
you can, but biasing becomes a little bit more difficult. There might be ways around that too. Sure, you might be able to do that. Okay, but the thing is, you in general you want to avoid negative resistances, because you want to, even in this case for example, right, what you still have CSB here, right, the source to bulk capacitance. You definitely still want to be very careful. You don't want to add any capacitance at the source node. Okay, Okay. Okay. Now let's look at one more thing. What is the Q of a series resonant network? Omega L by R. Okay. So in this case, okay, so remember, so you still have RS, VS. Okay. That is the Q of the resonant network, right? You have RS, you have omega TLS. That's your real portion. Is that clear to everyone? Okay. Now, so let's say you have a voltage V. Do you remember what the voltage across the inductor and the capacitor is? It's Q times V, right? So let me just put the smart. The magnitude of the voltage is Q times V. Okay. So what that means is, if you see in this case, the voltage, the gate to source voltage of the transistor, okay, is actually Qn times Vs. So remember, when we talked about the series resonant network, I told you it can be used for passive amplification. So this is one case. Okay. The other advantage of doing this kind of matching is that you actually get some extra amplification through your Q. Okay. And if you want to write it in terms of V in, which is the voltage here, sometimes because you are interested in the voltage at the input of the amplifier itself rather than Vs. So okay. Okay. So what is your effective GM? Okay. The effective GM of the overall combination is 2Q in V in. Sorry. 2Q in times GM. Okay. So because instead of relating to Vs, we are relating it to V in. Okay. So remember, Vs and Rs are characteristics of the source which is driving the amplifier. You may want to do it in terms of the voltage seen at the input of the amplifier itself. Okay. Is that clear to everyone? Okay. So you also get some effective extra amplification from the Q. Okay. So what do you do about the output? So looks like we are all set for the input. So let's replace this by this GM effective. So let's say this is the gate. Times V in. Okay. What do you do at the output? So at the output, you can add another resonant circuit. Okay. Okay. To get some, because what you know is you want a narrowband amplifier. Okay. If you add a resistance, it would add noise. Okay. If you add a resonance circuit, you would get a high impedance at resonance without adding a physical resistor, and you'd get a narrow band noise which would reject out of band noise too. Okay. Okay, what else? You also have a couple of other capacitors here. CL, which is the input capacitance of the next stage, plus the drain to bulk capacitance of this transistor itself. Okay, and okay, so I'll draw it in a different color. I'm going to call it RD. It's not a physical resistor, but at resonance, that is the impedance of the resonant network, LC tank, looking upwards. Okay, and this will be a function of the Qs of LD and CD. Sure, but GDS we are right now neglecting, because what will happen is these RDs which you will get here will be maybe a couple of 100 ohms or something like that, whereas GDS may be much higher. Okay, and for this network, F0, you can calculate F0, and you can, sorry. Okay, normally what you want is for good operating conditions, to make sure your circuit is, your resonant frequency is not very sensitive to parasitics. You need to make sure definitely much greater than CdB. Okay, you don't want it to be sensitive to your transistor size. The parasitics may vary, okay, with your transistor size, with your bias conditions and so on. You don't want to do that. Okay, you also don't want to be too dependent on the load capacitance. This may not be always possible, but you don't want to be too dependent on that. Okay, the reason is quite often you want the mixer design to be independent of your LNA design. Okay, you don't want to be dependent, because if you're, let's say you want more gain from the mixer, you might need to change the mixer size. You don't want to come back and redo the LNA. Okay. Okay. Next we'll look at stability. Sorry? The main reason is you want to make your design of an LNA, you try to make it independent of the design of the mixer. Okay, so obviously if the mixer size changes, so the LNA is driving the mixer in a typical receiver. Okay, and if let's say you're redesigning the mixer for some reason, you don't want your LNA, output resonant frequency and other things to get affected. Okay, now this may not always be possible. Okay, it depends on what frequency you are operating at, what the inductor value is, LD. Now obviously the next question is how you would choose LD, right? You try to choose LD and CD such that you get the maximum RD. Why do you want to get the maximum RD? Because the overall gain is GM effective times RD. So you want to get more gain. Okay?
Broadband, the quality factor of the output load should be high, lower.
If you have broadband, is it?
I mean to say that if you make independent of the LD insensitive CDT.
So what we are trying to do is we are trying to make CD much greater than CL plus CDB. Okay, if you do that, then you can approximate your resonant frequency to 1 over 2 pi root LD/CD. Okay, and that's the idea. You want to make sure F0 does not move with parasitics. Okay, you want to make sure it does not move when your mixer design changes.
When you have a broadband requirement, what should I do?
When you have a broadband,
Like large frequency range requirement. This will be
okay.
very sharp.
Yes, and in this case we are designing a narrow band LNA. Okay, if you are designing a very broadband LNA, well, when you say broadband, do you mean like a low pass LNA?
Yes.
Right? When you do a low pass LNA, we'll come to it later in the course. Okay, we'll see there are techniques for improving the bandwidth of low pass LNAs. Okay, to make it insensitive to your, you try to make it insensitive to load capacitance. Okay, there are techniques to do that. I think we will have time to come to that at the end of the course. Okay.
In that case, we will not use LDCD. That network will be something else.
Yes, it'll okay. It'll have LD. It may not have CD. Okay, it'll definitely have LD. Okay, but that's the simplest case would be just LD with a series resistance. Okay, there are more complex cases. We'll come to it later in the course. Okay, let's get back to our stability. Okay, so this is characterized by what is called the Stern stability factor. Okay, which is represented by K. Oh, sorry. Okay, 1 plus mod delta squared minus S1 mod S11 squared minus mod S22 squared over 2 mod S12 mod S21. So it completely depends on your S parameters of your 2 ports. So this is a very general situation, okay, for any 2 port with S parameters. Okay. Okay, and your delta is S11 S22 minus S12 S21. Okay, so one of the things you want to, apart from not having any negative resistances, right? So the other thing you can do is try to reduce S12. Okay, because what happens is, so that effectively what you're saying is you're reducing your, remember S12 stands for your reverse isolation. Okay, so if you reduce S12, your stability will automatically become better. Okay, actually before we go there, so I think the conditions for stability, right? Man, it looks really bad. Okay. Okay, if you have K greater than 1 and delta less than 1, if both of these are satisfied, it's unconditionally stable.
Like conventionally, we look at stability in terms of the required mode have gain management.
Yes. Yes.
This is like a equivalent representation
In terms of the S parameters, that's right. Because what you will see is pretty much any because if you are designing an LNA, you will pretty much be dealing with only the S parameters. Okay, so what you will do is you want an input match, you want your S11 to be very small. Okay, if you want output match, you want S22 to be very good, very low. Okay, remember S12 is a sign of reverse isolation, you want to reduce that. S21 is a sign of your power gain. Okay, so you are pretty much dealing with S parameters and not with, I mean, if you are analyzing it as a block. Okay, and that is what you want to do, because as the LNA system as a whole, you want to make sure it's unconditionally stable. That's why you're dealing with this. Now, when you get to more detailed, I guess more finer details, what you'll do is when you start looking at the gain and so on, then you start looking at the GM of the transistor, the parallel resistance of the resonant tank, and so on. But as far as the overall system is concerned, this is the best way to look at the stability. Okay. One of the other, sorry, go ahead.
This needs to be done only on the metal full amplifier system or
Okay. Okay, I'll tell you. So if you go back to your original, let's say this is the equivalent circuit of your transistor, right, of your amplifier. Is there any chance that this could be unstable? Actually, in this case, there is no chance. First of all, it's a single stage, okay, and you have resonant circuits all over. Okay, you don't have any CGD. First of all, so your S12 is characterized by your CGD. Okay, if your CGD is very large, your S12 will be pretty bad. Your reverse isolation will be very bad. Okay, so in this case, for example, if you just consider the amplifier by itself, it's a single stage amplifier. There's no chance for it to be stable. However, you can have, for example, CGD. You can have, based on your layout, you can have parasitic capacitances, input-output capacitances. Okay, you can have problems with which things, parasitic routing capacitances, routing resistances can change your S11, S22 and so on. So at the end of the day, you can't just look at the circuit alone, you have to look at the overall LNA system from the input to the output, and that's the main reason why, because you're dealing with a case where parasitics can be pretty important in deciding your stability. Okay?
Sir, once we define the S11, S12 and all these parameters for a given system,
Mhm.
the parasitics will be taken into consideration. Right?
And exactly, but then once you have the parasitics into account, right, you can't go back and look at the circuit and say whether it's stable. The circuit itself may be perfectly stable, but overall system you will be dealing with the S parameters, okay, and then you'll be dealing with the Stern stability factor for your stability. Okay. Okay, and what else did we say? CGD is related to your S12. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll stop here. I have a little bit more, but I think you guys can take a look at it. It's just the how the input impedance varies as a function of CGD. Okay, I'll post up the notes. You can take a look at it. It's very straightforward. Okay, the main thing to note is that if you look at the input impedance of a transistor with a CGD, what you'll find is it has a negative component. Okay, negative resistance component, which is proportional to CGD. So the larger CGD gets, the worse the negative component and the more unstable the system can get. Okay.